Welcome back to Edgework, part of the Hammer Betting Network, presented by FanDuel. I got something in my eye while the intro was
Oh,
going.
terrible
I'm in
timing.
shambles right now. Um, I'm Zack Phillips, joined by Alex Moretto and Matt Alber, and yeah, I can't open my eye right now. Hopefully, we'll get that sorted out in the next minute or so. Boys, how are we feeling on this Friday morning with one NHL game on the schedule here today?
It's been a great
Terrible.
week to do literally anything but watch sports.
Yeah,
Like
Didn't even actually talk about
NHL has
the
been very
Habs
weird.
game last night.
Yeah, you've had a couple of these dead NHL days. Like NBA's basically been off this week. College is dead because of finals. Like it's been a great week to literally do anything but try to watch sports all week.
fair enough. Moretto, same applies for you after last night, or what?
Yeah, wasn't a like it was an okay, kind of a frustrating, I'd say, betting night last night. Again, it was the games that we don't give out that I shouldn't have let so money talk me into that Sharks Blues. And we got the Georgiev start too. I just knew the second I saw that convert, I'm like, this is a loser. I don't even want to watch this game. And it was. Gustafson, just disaster for the Wild. What did we ended up going last night? What was
We finished last night 7 bets. We went 3-4. We lost
okay.
Red Wings money line, Sharks Blues under 6, Wild Oilers under 6, and Bruins money
That was
line.
mine, and I was on that one too. And then again, it's the ones that we don't give out that just get me stewing here. Like I really like that Caps Blue Jackets. I really like that Caps Blue Jackets under. Got scared off of it because of Barry legend Jack Reeves didn't give it out, and that was an easy winner. And then Panthers Canucks got bet down from 6 to 5.5 and stayed off that one. And yeah, that was another easy winner. That was so just frustrating. And yes, Stolezina is dead. I don't know what that. I don't know. That's those words don't combine well.
No, they don't.
No.
I read it like 10 times trying to say it in my head, trying to figure out what the proper way to say it would be. Yeah, don't combine too well, but I mean, it doesn't seem like it's that serious. It seemed like right away after the game they came out and said it wasn't that serious. During the game, Saravelli said it wasn't that serious, so not really overly concerned here. But
Well, Saravelli with maybe one of the worst quotes of all time. Just like talk about hedging your bets. What did he say? He said it's not believed to be incredibly serious.
yeah,
Like,
what a
sure,
lie.
buddy. Yeah, okay, good for you. Like, that's great. This way, if it's like 6 weeks or 8 weeks, you can be like, see, it wasn't incredibly serious. But if it's like 3 days, you can be like, yeah, see, it was mild. Just like he's covered himself fully, basically, aside from like a full season absence at this point. I can't stand that type of shit. But yeah.
Oh, this is true too. Charles says AM34 wasn't serious and he left the country. Yeah, I said that in the post-game shows last night. I was like, okay, it wasn't that serious. Does that mean like a month? Like
A few of my
2
buddies
months?
during the game yesterday were talking in the group chat. They're all Leafs fans, and they were like, "This is, what's going to happen is Bruce is going to come out and be like, yeah, we don't believe it's much. Like it's going to be fine, and he's going to be day to day for 6 weeks." Like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm expecting at this point. Alber, how was your night last night?
It was fine. Honestly, didn't watch much hockey at all. Kind of just looked in, saw the Habs score, and sent something Moretto saying, "What the hell happened here?" Like I looked up and it was 3-2 at one point, and then I looked back up and it's 9-2. I'm just like, I didn't see a second of the game. Just trying to figure out what happened, and I don't know. I guess the Habs are dead.
Caden Primo, what happened is, so at 6-2, it was actually like it started to get a little away from them, obviously, but like through the first 2 periods, it was a very even game. Habs could have been up 4-1, they could have been down 4-1. Like it was just a very like even game. They had their chances, they didn't score them. Pittsburgh scored on their power plays, the Habs didn't. That was kind of the difference. And then it kind of started to get away from them a little bit in the third, like not necessarily the style of play, but just Pittsburgh scored a couple weird goals. And then I was like, I turned it off at 6-2, and then I was like, what the hell? It's 9-2. Like this is, and then I looked, I'm like, oh, Caden Primo came in, let in 3 goals on 4 shots. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. That adds up.
Yeah, fair enough.
That checks
All right,
out.
let's get to today's game. We'll get to best bets if you guys have any, and then we'll take a look at futures. Today was probably going to be a shorter show here, but if you are watching, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe here to the channel, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. Then you'll never miss a show. But before we can get into the game, before we get into the futures bets, you guys know it. Hockey season is in full swing. If with FanDuel, you can turn a little hunch into a true power play. FanDuel has the hottest same-game parlays found on the Parlay Hub. Lace them up and follow your bets with player prop tracking or bet on the fly with the Pulse. Make every NHL watching experience more with FanDuel, North America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers kick off the season with $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Just place any $5 bet. You'll get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Please play responsibly. Must be 19 plus, physically located in Ontario. Gambling problem? Call 1-866-531-2600. That's 1-866-531-2600. Visit connectsontario.ca. All right, boys. First and only game, I guess, on the board here today. Ottawa, Carolina. The Sens plus 172. Carolina minus 210. This is if you click into FanDuel there. Total of 6.5 plus 110. Over minus 134. Under. Alber, you've been a big fan of fading the Sens as big favorites. Are you backing them as big dogs?
I'm not on them here, but that's the only way I'd look in this one, honestly. They've been the better team out of these two, frankly, lately. I just don't have a whole lot of interest in betting this game. I have no interest in kind of getting in front of the Canes at this point, especially with a team that I don't really like as a whole in Ottawa. So I have nothing here, but I would definitely lean Ottawa.
Where are you at on this, Moretto? Are you betting on it?
I mean, Ottawa's played better lately, but they're playing no one. Like, they played the Ducks a couple times. They played Detroit. They played Nashville, Islanders, San Jose, Calgary. Like, they literally have not played a good team since that Kings game, and they got pretty shelled in that game. So yeah, I don't buy into this resurgence. Still, like, not dying to back, obviously, the Canes at this number, and they haven't necessarily looked great. Total is pretty much is a 6 everywhere, and that's fine. I don't want to get I still like Ottawa unders, but I don't necessarily love Hurricanes unders. They're very much spot and situation dependent. This isn't one like it was against the Sharks for me the other day. So nothing for me here. Just depressing. Only have one game to talk about.
Yeah.
Terrible.
And nothing.
Terrible.
Charles says Brady Tkachuk trade rumors to be discussed all broadcast minus 200. I hope so. I hope they do. I hope they don't give up on it. I hope they bring it up the entire time. And then I hope we get another big story about how this is soft tampering.
I was going to say, can we get a soft tampering rant here from you? Because that was ridiculous.
Soft tampering is the stupidest fucking term of all time. That is just an owner and or an organization that doesn't get enough attention because they don't deserve enough attention and goes online to say, hey, look at us. So you need to apologize to us for making up these rumors. Guess what? If your team was fucking good, nobody would be talking about trading for your captain. If your team wasn't missing the playoffs every single year for 5 consecutive years after your rebuild was over, nobody would be circling your captain. Everybody in the NHL wants him in the first place. Obviously, every team would die to have a guy like Brady Tkachuk on their team. But nobody would talk about it if you were good. So maybe be good and worry about that first, and soft tampering, this made-up term you used for pity, later. Jesus.
I agree with Charles. We want hard tampering.
Yes.
So
you're the tampering or you're not.
So because this all kind of revolved around the Rangers, right? Like, here's kind of my question with this, because I may have just missed something here. Did anything happen? Like, what happened aside from one Larry Brooks, like, tweet, article, whatever, saying they're interested in him? Like, was that the only thing here that happened?
We will never know.
He just makes up rumors, like, writers make up rumors on a whim. Like, they need clicks. That's their whole model, right? Like, they got.
I'm not saying there was tampering or there wasn't, but we will never know. We'll never know. Like, that's asking what happened is pointless because we'll never know what happened behind the scenes. Like, did anyone contact anyone? And also, who gives a shit if they did? Like, I mean, I know you're not allowed to, whatever. Like, I don't care. Doesn't matter to me.
This
like,
to me just feels like them getting upset about like the Larry Brooks article, thinking that he has some kind of say.
Talking to a guy behind the scenes isn't gonna, like, prompt his team to trade him. Like, I understand that there's a lot of moving pieces here, but like, it doesn't matter. It's such a just let's get pissed off about nothing. Like, worry about what's going on in house and worry about winning games. Worry about fixing your team, not whether or not another team is trying to talk to one of your players or some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to the
Like,
point Kevin just made, if you have good players, like people are going to want them.
Mhm.
yeah,
It kind of is what it is. And I don't know.
yeah.
I do feel like if the Rangers front office actually did anything, I feel like kind of with Ottawa's owner coming out and saying all this stuff, like that would have been mentioned, right? Like I think if there was any legitimacy to this, he would have been like, "Hey, here's what happened," instead of just, "Oh, they did this,
Soft
they did that."
tampering.
Like to me, it legitimately just feels like they're upset about a Larry Brooks article. Which you know what, join
Yeah.
the club. Everyone's upset about a Larry Brooks article. Like he's good at it. That's what he does. But I just
He's
don't
just
think this
writing
was
what he
a-
hears. He's not like he's not reporting.
Yeah, but
Like,
like this guy's been all over Brady Tkachuk to the Rangers since like his draft year. Like I need to go back and pull up an old tweet, but there's some tweet from like 5-6 years ago at this point where
You
he was
know
talking
what?
about like, oh, if he plays a couple more years, like he could end up with the Rangers or something along those lines. Like
You know what? I
he's been
want
on
it
this
on
for
the
years.
record. I would like Brady Tkachuk on the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't know if that's
I
soft
think there
tampering,
are
but I would as
31
well.
other teams that would like Brady Tkachuk on their team.
Yep.
Zach, we're gonna have to investigate Zach for that comment now.
Check
Zach's gonna
out-
lose his first round pick.
Soft tampering with the Leafs.
I'm gonna cause the Leafs to lose their first round pick because I said on the show I want Brady Tkachuk.
You
Yeah,
don't even
that
have a
makes
first round
sense.
pick.
Yes.
Should start pushing the Tkachuk from our new narrative right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, nothing from this game. There's our Brady Tkachuk soft tampering discussion. Moretto, you have futures you want to give out. You teased it. I think it was on Wednesday. You said come back on Friday. We'll have a couple futures to give out. Are they still available? And what are they?
Yeah, they're available because I wasn't ready to give them out the other day because I hadn't finished all the work I was doing into them, but they're good now. I got I think 1, 2, 4 that I consider pretty sizable edges in terms of point totals. So I don't know how in depth we need to go into the explanation behind these. I'll try and keep them a little quick. Maybe I'll give out one and then you guys can say if you agree or disagree with it or how you feel about the teams, and we'll kind of go from there.
I'm good with that. Yep.
Sounds good to me. I only have one thing to give, so go ahead.
Okay. So first one is Oilers over 105.5 points on FanDuel. They're playing at 102 point pace right now. That's we all know how they started the season. It was not pretty. Obviously didn't have McDavid for a chunk of time as well. They were below 500 through the first 20 games. They've obviously found their game again. We have all the evidence in the world to suggest that they're fine, if not better than ever. And I believe in how they're playing right now because of how well they've been defensively. They've been so good defensively, and it's the foundation that you need to build off, to rattle off a bunch of wins, which they're starting to do now. 7 of 8, dominating some very good teams. Schedule's gotten tough, and they have not wavered one bit. Skinner settled down. He's found his groove. And like the thing is, this is a top-heavy NHL right now where like parity, I feel like, is kind of at an all-time low. You have your very good teams at the top. You kind of have like some bubble teams. Here, I don't want to be off camera. You have your very good teams, you have your like bubble teams here, and then you have your bad teams that are like very bad. And the gap even between the top teams and like the bubble teams is bigger than it's been in a while. You look at the NHL the last couple of years, teams finishing 110 plus points is very common. It's become a lot more common than it used to be. At least just right now, I think that's the kind of period we're in at this point where like it's an arms race at the top and teams at the bottom are just quick to sell off everything and just recognize that it's not their time. It's not their chance to compete. And they're going to just sell off everyone for spare parts. So 110 points is like becoming sort of the norm. They're on pace for 102. 106 should be nothing considering the start that they've had. I like them to finish at 110 plus. That's plus 185 as well. So I would go full unit on over 105.5 and half unit on 110 plus at plus 185.
Alber, I'll let you respond first here.
No, I do like this one. I think especially kind of right now when you look at some of these point totals, especially what you got to keep in mind is if you know whether the team's going to buy or sell at the deadline. And I think with the Oilers, like they're going to improve. So I think that's also kind of a key factor here is like there's no chance they're kind of just going to stay pat. They're going to get a lot better before the deadline. So I'm on board with this. I like the way the Oilers have been playing. And like we saw this last year too, right? Where it's like, okay, they started terribly and now the last couple of games of the year, like they're competing for the division. So I do see a very similar outcome here, especially with maybe some of the other teams in that division not quite being kind of what we thought they'd be. especially kind of as you look at them going forward. So I do agree with this one. Yep.
Yeah, I like this one here as well. Pulling up on FanDuel, obviously, over 105.5 minus 110, and then go to alt points there. If you go to that section, 110 plus, obviously, as Moretto said, plus 185. We'll go half unit on those. We'll lock in both those plays. I like it. I'm in agreement here. I don't really have anything. I was going to kind of pull up the point that Alber made there about they're just going to be adding as well and just getting better from where they already are, just in terms of who they're bringing in. So I like everything about this one. What else you got for us?
Yeah, so the next two I'm going to give kind of together because they're both similar sentiments in my mind. They're all both overs. Lightning over 99.5, Kings over 98.5. Again, this kind of plays into like the lack of parity in the league. And, these are like shoe-in playoff teams for me that 100 points is still somewhat conservative in my opinion. I don't know why the market's still low and refusing to buy into either of these teams. You look at the Lightning, it's not just the betting market, but it also seems like fans around the league in general are kind of down on this team. Everyone's just adopted this notion that like Tampa's reign is over and this isn't the same team. And do they even make the playoffs? Is this the year that their playoff run ends? Like whatever, like the results haven't maybe fully been there yet, but like the underlying numbers are so good with this team right now. They're a wagon. Like they're the second best team in the Atlantic, I would say at this point. It's not far off from being the best either. Like they're just a hair below the Panthers overall 5-on-5 expected goal share. Couple of percentage points higher than the Leafs, better offensive numbers, better defensive numbers. They played just 27 games, which is the fewest in the NHL. And 18 of those 27 games are against teams that are like 95% chance to make the playoffs. Like those 100%, like they're going to be in type teams like the Leafs, the Colorados, the Panthers, the, whatever, like those type of teams, Vegas, stuff like that. Like they have had a murderer's row of a schedule and they're still putting up some really, really impressive underlying numbers. Easiest strength of schedule remaining in the NHL right now by a decent margin too. They still have all those dumpster teams to play. The fact that they're, still not getting the market respect is largely down to, I think, just an overreaction to maybe the schedule they've had and how the results haven't been there. But like the underlying numbers, you look at like what their expected points should be, all that sort of stuff. It's really impressive how they're playing right now. I think 100 points is pretty conservative for them. I think they should coast to this number. And then the Kings, very similar situation, just playing great hockey, not getting necessarily the respect they deserve. It seems like they're on pace to smash this number. The Lightning are not, but again, I think that's largely down to the schedule they've had so far. The Kings are on pace to finish ahead of this easily. It's like the market seems to be expecting regression from them. I don't know where the regression would come from. Because like maybe Kopitar is not a point per game player anymore like he's been so far, but he's not far off from that. You look up and down the roster, like Fiala started slow. Byfield hasn't been close to what we've maybe expected of him coming into the year. And Kemper missed time. They've had basically David Rittich as their starter, who's been pretty shit. So they've had like well below average goaltending, -4 goals saved above expected, still playing at 105-point pace. Now they're getting Kemper back, who's definitely the better of the two. Doughty hasn't played a game yet. He'll be on his way back. This team's only going to get better, not worse. Market's projecting them to get worse with this number, which I cannot make sense of whatsoever. I think this one's a banger.
I'm in on both here. The only thing that would kind of concern me with the Kings one would just be if there is regression. I understand what you're saying, like where would it come from? But I don't know. I personally feel like this team, I don't know, I gotta be careful how you word it. Like, I don't think they're better without Doughty. I just think that he might have been overvalued to the team ahead of time. I wonder how that works when he comes back. How does it fit? How does all the pieces fit back in? That would be more so the question, which like, I know that's kind of like a overthinking mindset, but like, you know what I mean? You throw that piece back in.
You don't want to like mess with the good thing. So like when you're rolling it kind of, no, I hear it.
Like it doesn't ruin the team and make them a bad team, but like, does it slow them down? Does it change the dynamic? Does it change the pairings, the chemistry, etc.? I wonder how that would impact things, if that would be the regression that we see in the group. But otherwise, Like, yes, I like this bet. Tampa, Moretto, you and I talked about it before the season. When the season started, we both were much higher than on them
Mhm.
than I think many people were. So I like this. We also, just as a reminder to people, excuse me, we did add on December the 2nd, LA Kings Pacific Division winner plus
Mhm.
650. So that was added. Oilers Pacific Division winner is also added at plus 165 that same day. Alber, any thoughts for you on these ones?
So I agree with the Lightning one, definitely more than the Kings. My issue with the Kings, and you kind of say where could the regression come from? And I think you touched on the goaltending issues, which I don't think are going to get a lot better. Like I think it could be okay, but I don't expect that to like become a strength. They've been the best defensive team in the league all year. So I think if you're looking at where could things go wrong for the Kings, if they're not able to continue to be the best defensive team of the year, I think they could become a little leaky back there, especially when you don't see the best goaltending. But again, like if you're kind of relying on that, like I actually kind of think this number is kind of dead on. So it's like, yeah, that's kind of my pushback on it would be like, okay, in order to kind of smash through this, like they'd continue to have to be the number one defensive team in the league because they're not going to be the highest scoring team out there. So they kind of have to play this way, especially with kind of a weaker goalie tandem. So that would be my pushback on there. As far as the Lightning, I agree, especially kind of when you look at the Eastern Conference, like all, and I feel like we do this every year, like all of these teams that we look at and go, could they take the next step? Could they take the next step? The Detroits, the Buffaloes, the Ottawas, they all suck.
Mhm.
So it's like none of these bubble teams are really pushing. And then in the Atlantic, like the bubble team's even worse, like Pittsburgh and Columbus isn't there, and the Islanders don't look good. Like the rain, like all these Eastern Conference teams are struggling. So I think it kind of when you look at that too, like that's why they have a really weak strength of schedule coming up, is because
Mm-hmm.
none of these teams in the East are really kind of pushing for that playoff spot. So I definitely agree with the Lightning one more. The Kings, I'm just not there with.
Okay, so we had 4 so far to the show today. Oilers over 1.5, or over 105.5 points, minus 110. Oilers 110 plus points, plus 185. Tampa over 99.5, minus 114. LA Kings over 98.5, minus 122. Moretto, do you got anything else for us, or is that it?
Yeah, one more. This one is, I'll keep this one really quick, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Flames under 87.5. They're just, I think we've seen their best hockey at this point. And they've started to drastically tail off. I think it's going to get a lot worse. And realistically, like Albert touched on earlier about which teams are going to buy, which teams are going to sell, this is basically like they're kind of going to be right on pace for this sort of number right now. But I don't think they're this good of a team, just based on not just their underlying numbers, but you just look at that roster too. And yeah, Kuzmenko, Kadri, Coleman, Mantha, Rasmus Anderson. These are all guys whose names are being thrown around. For a team that, let's be honest, is rebuilding and is happy to kind of move on from some of these guys if they can, and some of these contracts. So I think the roster is only going to get worse. I think this number is too high. I have them more in the low 80s finishing points wise.
Yeah, I know that Kadri and Rasmussen are heavily sought after approaching this deadline. Those guys will most likely not be Calgary Flames by the end of the season. So
Rasmus
very
Anderson
much
is
in
a
agreement there.
stud. Whoever gets him is
So
that's
good.
yeah, he's very good.
So
Speaking of, and
good.
he's another Barry Colts legend. And speaking of Barry guys, Brant Clark on the Kings. I think that's
Oh,
I think that people don't realize just how good this guy is. I've seen him play a bunch here. He has a Norris in his future. I
yeah.
like, maybe that's a bit, I don't know. I don't think that's much. I genuinely don't think that's like an overreaction. I think he has a Norris in his future for sure. He is so good.
I got in some major arguments with people 2 years ago before Marner's um, no trade kicked in. They was like, where could he fit? Where could he fit? What's a team that would need a guy like this? And obviously, like in fantasy land, the hypothetical that was being thrown out was I kept saying Marner, if the Kings are going to want a guy like that, if the Kings are looking at a guy like that, Marner going to LA and you get back some like mid-level forward and you shoot for Brant Clark. Like that's the guy you're trying to get. And all these people kept being like, oh, the kid's never done anything. Why would you want a player like that? He's gonna be a project. You got to develop him. Like that was the one that I just like pat myself on the back of. Like I fucking told you. Like I knew the whole time this kid was just going to be disgusting. Obviously, it takes some bounces to pan out the right way, but here we are. Here we are.
Yeah. Barry has like a history of producing some great defensemen. Look at you guys want something to do maybe later today when there's nothing going on hockey wise. Kashawn Aitchison, look at his highlight reel. He is a draft eligible guy for this year coming up. He plays in Barrie right now. He is unbelievable. He is going to be the next like great Barrie Colts defenseman in this league. He's an easy first round pick. I would say he could probably become a top 10 pick. This guy is a tank. He can score, he can play great defense, and he murders guys. Like, look at his hit and fight reel. It is insane. He's so good. He's like an all-around kind of defenseman. Just someone to keep an eye on.
Albert, you got anything for us here today?
So this Flames one is the one as we kind of started. And I was looking through it. Like I like it a lot too. And I know we were kind of very anti-Flames to start the year. I agree with all that. Like I think they're going to sell some pieces off. You mentioned Kadri. Like I would personally don't think he's going to get traded. Like he's got what 5 more years or something left, and he's on a full no move still. Like I don't think he's the one that gets moved, but like. Yeah, Mantha, I think. Like Anderson, I do think gets moved at some point here. So I do see this roster getting worse before it gets better. And we've seen this team tail off. Like they started really hot. I don't even remember what it was. Like were they 6-0 or something to start the year? Like they had a long point streak, I know. Like they've just tailed off. And I think this is a pretty weak team going forward. So yeah, I also like the under 87.5.
All right.
Any other futures? 5-0-1 or something to start the year. But yeah. They were right there, like you said. I got nothing else, though.
Yeah.
I think Alber.
Yeah. So the one I like, if you go over to worst record, I like the Blackhawks here. I still think the Sharks are just being priced like by far the worst team in hockey, and I just don't think they are. Like they're above the Blackhawks right now in the standings, and I just think that they're a better team than the Blackhawks at this point. And again, you kind of touch on teams that are probably going to be able to sell some stuff. You look at the Blackhawks, like they're going to have some guys that are of interest coming up. Taylor Hall is going to be of interest. Like Ryan Donato is going to be of interest to teams. Like as much as we kind of make fun of guys like this, like Patrick Maroon's going to be of interest to teams out there come playoff time. So it's like I do think that they're going to end up trading things off. And I just think that they're a much worse team than the Sharks, frankly, as is. And you kind of look at the Sharks and everyone expects them to trade everything off. The problem the Sharks have kind of put themselves in that actually kind of, I guess, makes them a better team right now is that they're not going to be able to retain on anybody. They've already used all of their salary retained spots. So when you look at someone like Mikhail Granlund, who may be able to get a lot out there, okay, maybe you're going to struggle to move him a little bit more because you're not going to be able to keep that salary and the team's going to have to eat the full $5 million. So I like the price here. I think that they're a worse team and they're currently behind in the standings. So we can go ahead and lock in Blackhawks to be the worst.
Full unit on this here, Albert? Or how do you want to do that? Plus
yeah,
340.
fuck it, why not?
This guy. Fuck it, why not, he says. All right, there you go. There's another one that we'll lock in here. Blackhawks worst record, courtesy of Alber. No bets, side or totals. We did have here, AS said, good morning with the spare time today. How about a little Saturday early slate preview since you all left Zach hanging last week?
I did not leave Zach hanging. I sent him a winner and he refused to post it. So,
well, it was the only one that came in. And I was like,
I know. I also sent it at like 2, and we normally do it a little earlier. I just was tied up this weekend, but
yep, all good.
Yeah.
Do we want to get ahead of the Rangers schedule here and bet them to miss the playoffs?
I was looking at that. I really do like that. I just don't want to get. I literally was. That was one I was going to give out at the number that I think is a really good number. And I was like, I just can't do it because if they make the playoffs, then I literally can't listen to you. I won't be able to listen to you. I won't even be able to look at you.
Well, no. So here's the thing. If they barely sneak into the playoffs or you're going to get smacked, like I'm not going to give a shit. I do think this is a good price. I think when I look at this one, even if you don't, how do I put this? Even if you don't really think they're going to miss, this price is going to get better before it gets worse. If that makes sense.
Part of the reason I did give it out too, though, I did the aisles. I gave out. I think you were on. No, you weren't on. It was yesterday, I believe. So I gave out aisles to make playoffs at plus 235 yesterday, I think. and I bet that myself. And that like they're kind of correlated in a way, right? Like I mean, the Isles can make the playoffs along with the Rangers, but like obviously the Rangers not making the playoffs very much helps the Isles make the playoffs. So they're not like completely correlated, but there is correlation there.
I think we kind of touched on that. I think it was Wednesday too. Like there are better prices out there. Like I know we mentioned the Flyers kind of the other day as one. It's like, yeah, if you take your pick of one of these kind of bubble-ish teams that you like, you're going to get a better price. And the only thing that kind of, I guess, worries me for this bet / gives me maybe some hope for optimism with the Rangers is even over the last few years, and they have had a history of doing this, is they've been playing down to bad teams and they play up to the good teams. Like I remember even last year, like they went through this stretch in, I think it was early January, where like they were playing Chicago and San Jose and Anaheim, and they were just terrible. Like Ottawa, like I remember the game that kind of turned it around from them is like they were getting smacked by Ottawa, and all of a sudden, I think it was Connor Mackey fights somebody, and all of a sudden they turn it around and go on a run. It's like, okay, but they did this 2 years ago too, where they went on this run and they're kind of beating all these top end teams, and then they play down. I don't know. I'm just kind of trying to give myself some reason not to want to hang myself every time I watch the Rangers, but like there is a little hope for optimism that maybe they're doing the same thing they do in every year, that they play up to everyone who's good and they play down to everyone who's bad. So that's kind of, I guess, like the last hope this year is, okay, maybe now you're kind of going through this stretch of like, I think you're playing 12 really good teams out of 15 or something like this. Like, okay, maybe you're able to turn it on. Because like their roster is still better than all these other teams, right? Like no one's going to claim that the Islanders have a better roster than the Rangers. It's just, are they actually going to be able to play better? I don't know. And I know Zach really enjoyed that game the other night that had both fan bases just wanting to jump off a ledge.
Yes, I did.
I don't think I've ever seen a Rangers win that inspired less confidence in the team going forward. Like both teams looked like they've never played hockey before. The Rangers weren't any good. Buffalo was worse somehow. Like the team got booed off the ice after the first 2 periods, and you still almost blew it in the third, and probably should have. Sabres kind of dominated most of the third period. Like, I don't know. It was one that I wish I did not watch looking back on it. And it's like, I don't know. They need something to inspire some confidence, but again, with the Rangers, like I just don't see them selling. So when you kind of look at this team as far as like a playoff outlook, like, yeah, they're going.
They're all. This is their window. They're all in. Like they're going to use the money, the Trouba money, to buy. I'm not even only they're not going to sell. They are going to buy. That's another reason I was like, I'm going to stay away a little bit, because we're probably going to put that money to good use somewhere.
Yeah, my only question mark with the money is like, what are they even going to be able to do with it? Like, unless you're looking at it and like you're going to start flipping like multiple of these kind of young players like Will Cooley, who's been really good. And like, are you going to flip Cooley and Kakko for something? And because like they've already made it clear, like they're not going to trade Gabe Perreault. There's nobody really at the top end of the roster that like you're going to trade and bring someone in and spend that money with. Like, I don't know. I just don't really see how they're necessarily going to use that money. And I do think that they're going to add something, particularly on the back end. I just don't really know what they're going to be able to give up to like bring in. If fans are looking for a big name, I don't really see how they're going to bring in a big name unless they are going to ship out like one of these top guys. Like, I don't think they're going to try to move Kreider, like, especially if you're trying to win now. Like, that's a guy you need in April and May. Like, you've seen it every year, whether he's good or bad in the regular season. Like, he's probably the guy you trust the most come playoff time. So it's like, it's great that they've cleared up the money. I know part of that was obviously kind of with the fact that they have a lot of guys to resign. Like, they got Igor done right away. Like, the Loft extension kicks in. I know they have a couple other guys left to resign over the next couple summers. It's just, as far as this year, I don't really know how they're going to use that money.
You guys hear something Alber said, big name players. Last night I was watching obviously the Leafs Ducks game, and my girlfriend says, does Anaheim have any good players or big name players? I was like, no, like not really. Like, I guess but I was like, you're not gonna know them, like, McTavish or like what, like Zegras. I was like, Zegras you might know, like dating whatever D'Amelio. She's like, oh yeah, I think I've heard that name. And then all of a sudden Trouba comes out and they say, no, Jacob Trouba does something. She's like, oh, they do have big name players.
That's amazing.
Laughing. I'm like, well.
I am
I
counting
guess.
down the days until we can bet Jacob Trouba anytime goal scorer against the Rangers. I think it's in February, but it's happening.
It's
Just
it's
mark
a
it down.
March.
March.
I looked it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I looked it up. It's like
It's
March 6th or
it
something.
March.
happens.
Yeah. No, March 28th.
Honestly,
28. Okay.
and honestly, I kind of
Yeah.
hope he scores in his return and just gives a double middle finger to Chris Drury. Guys, like that would just be an all timer.
It would be good. All right. I think that's good for us here on the show today, unless anyone has anything else to add before we get out.
I feel like we didn't address the AS.
Oh yeah, the
here.
Saturday slate.
We will
numbers
send
in.
out. We will send out bets tomorrow, though. We will all send out a best bet for sure. I don't know. Last week just got away from us, I guess. But
Yeah.
just like there's literally no numbers posted anywhere, so it's pretty
Yeah, I
much
don't see
impossible to
anything.
say. Just spots that I'm like somewhat looking at. It's all number dependent. It depends how stuff opens, but like based on how the market's still pricing the Rangers and Kings, I feel like the Kings are going to be a side that I'm on tomorrow. If we can get sixes in the Flyers wild game, I'll probably be on an under there because it'll probably be back to Urson. So I like an under if we can get 6. And I like the Kings against the Rangers, depending on where that number will be. And I'll leave it at that because usually we'll send a best bet for the later games. Those are just 2 of the earlier games, which normally we won't send a play in for. So I probably even if I'm on both of those, I wouldn't send it in. A 12 number will probably be in place by then. So yeah, for the earlier games, those are 2 that I'll be looking at.
I will be up and available to tweet those out. But yes, getting those from Moretto today is easily the best way to do it. Though they will be tweeted out tomorrow, or the best bets. Alber, anything you're looking at right now?
Yeah, just kind of looking through the schedule. The one that catches my eye is Vegas and Edmonton. It's just a kind of matchup that's always priced super high in Edmonton's favor, and Vegas plays them really well all the time. I think they played twice already this year. Vegas was plus money in both, including at home. Vegas won both. Just kind of one of those matchups that I certainly just don't think is usually priced right. So I would imagine we're going to see something like Vegas plus 140 or above.
Yeah, we probably will. Yeah.
I think when they played in Edmonton a couple weeks ago, you could get Vegas like plus 150 or something. And that was McDavid's return, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it got bad.
I'd end up on that. Yeah, like to me, I'd end up on that.
That game was in Vegas, I'm pretty sure.
That one was in Edmonton. I think. Didn't they play they played last week. That one.
Oh, they played.
Vegas.
Yeah,
that
they
was
did.
That was the
Vegas,
1-0.
Yeah. That was the one Aiden Hill stood in his head. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. With some of these matchups, like we touched on them with the Rangers and Canes, some of these teams just know how to play against a certain opponent, and Vegas just knows how to beat Edmonton. So it's kind of one of those, like, if I'm going to get plus 140 and up, I'm going to play it again.
I don't know. Knows how to beat them maybe is a little like they did beat them, but like they got caved in that game and Aiden Hill stood in his head. That's like, I know that like that stuff that happens, but like if a goalie stands at his head, you're going to win a game. I don't necessarily know that falls into that category as like they have their number. Edmonton still like had their wins against them. Fair enough.
I'm trying to find what they're.
Oh, they did do us good last night. That was the double best bet we got home on Vegas. So it felt a little weird giving in to the Vegas and just letting it happen, but maybe we're onto something here, you know?
I know. When you guys were doing it yesterday, and Moretto was like, okay, like I'm caving. I was like, oh
Yeah.
God.
So I'm a broken man.
All right. That's
a good point about Johansson. Maybe we get Jonas Johansson.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday on the show. How it should be the Johansson day.
All right. Keep an eye out for that. We'll send out the tweets tomorrow. Edgework HQ on Twitter, and make sure to follow us there. Subscribe to the channel right here. You can, if you want to track all of our picks that go out, you can do so in the BetStamp app as Edgework HQ. That'll do it for us here today. We'll be back on Monday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time for more picks and previews. Until then, enjoy the games tonight. Enjoy the games throughout the rest of the weekend. And as always, good luck in your bets.